Pardon the nerves. I'm usually working behind the desk and talking to myself rather than everyone else. Today I'm going to be talking about leveraging patrol imagery, remote sensing data, and AI for right-of-way management and protection. A lot of words. We've put that into what we call our pipeline intelligence suite. And a little bit about Barr Geospatial is we're made up of 4 companies right now. You may have heard us all individually: Barr Air Patrol, Airborne Imaging, and our forestry and vegetation management with Foresight and Northwest Management. So a lot of different words you can read up there. The one that I will read off and point out, because it comes into play for some of our future slides, is 2.2 plus million pipeline right-of-way miles flown annually. And again, you can see we have bases all over North America, Canada, US, and actually this is outdated. It says 23, we're actually up to 28 now. So again, I'll be discussing the pipeline intelligence suite and specifically our oblique imagery, advanced AI detections, and how that can help prevent line strikes, as well as our other apps that we use in that suite, and also how we put it all together in our data resource portal. That's a lot more detail about our full suite. I'll only have time to talk about 3 of the 5 up there, but vegetation management and work planning, as well as methane detection and emissions monitoring, is a big part of what we offer in this suite. So if that piques your interest at all, feel free to grab me afterwards. So starting with our oblique imagery, we call it our Talon 360 imagery. You can see our pod with our camera inside of it down in that bottom right. And you can also see an example of one of the pictures that we get from that camera. And as you probably know, seeing 2 flaming debris piles right on the right-of-way is a problem. So I mentioned we have oblique imagery. This means we're flying offset rather than nadir top-down. This is because as advanced as our AI models are, it's never going to be perfect. For us, our pilots are the first line of defense, and they're still going to be calling in real-time reports, giving warnings to active threats on that right-of-way. And you can see from the picture on the right-hand side, this is what our pilots are able to see by flying offset, rather than on the left where you really don't have a clear visual of the right-of-way being flown. So we get all of this oblique imagery, oriented imagery. What do we do with it? It's not always the friendliest to just put out there and show. So we're partners with Esri, and we use their oriented imagery catalog extensively. This gives us the tools to actually orient those images in a friendly to use way. And we've found that through our use of this oriented imagery catalog that operators don't truly know what their entire right-of-way looks like. So using the oriented imagery, it gives them a cost-effective view of every inch of the asset's footprint on a weekly basis. And essentially what our pilots are seeing on the patrol, you can now see at your fingertips. And it gives not only your current view, but also a historical view. And for one of our customers, it goes back years, and that's tens of millions of images. And this helps a lot of different situations, a lot of use cases for these images. I'll let you read them there. I don't need to read all of them, but I will point out one of the biggest use cases that we found working with some of our operators is the ability to clear tickets remotely without sending an entire team on the ground to clear the ticket. So the second part of our oblique imagery is adding the AI detections. With all of the imagery that we have in our library, it gives us the ability to create our own models and not rely on off-the-shelf models. And you can see some examples of what our current models are detecting. You can see structures, heavy equipment, cars, pipes, and I think what excites me the most is the ground disturbances. And with every flight, we're continuing to improve our performance and functionality. And this is because we really have a unique position with the amount of data that we have. Essentially, the more training data you have, the higher your accuracy can be. And just to give a little perspective, on our current models that we've made, we've only utilized 1,000% of our current image catalog. And if you remember that 2.2 million miles of right-of-way that we fly, it's continuing to get even bigger, that catalog. So not only do we have a lot of quantity, but we also learned that it doesn't make a lot of sense, or it's not as useful if we can't take advantage of speed as well as flexibility. So when we just started out creating all of these AI models, we were doing about 8,000 images, which is on average what a flight is, and it would take us 5 days. And through figuring out a lot more of, AI processing takes a lot of power, and we've become more strategic as well. We are actually able to do 11,000 images now in 45 minutes, and that means it gets to the customer a lot quicker. And these are some metrics. I don't want to bore everyone too much with that or take too much time. So if you want to have a sideline conversation, I'm happy to do that. And so now I was able to show you just the imagery. And now this is more of a high-level view of our imagery, but with our AI detections on top of that. And as you zoom in, you get a better picture of that. And you can see all the heavy machinery, vehicles, and those ground disturbances that I mentioned earlier. And actually, our next model that we've just released also will capture the pipes and also those pallets that you can see on the ground as well. And we've learned there's a good reason we should be tracking those pallets, and that'll come into play on our next slide. So we work with BP to do a case study and learn from an incident that occurred. So what happened, they had a line strike. They did everything they were supposed to do, but it still happened. And it was because a third-party contractor failed to call 811 before they started digging directly on the right-of-way. So what can we learn? BP did everything they were supposed to. We were doing the patrols and reporting everything we saw, but it still happened. So what we learned there were leading indicators that we could have picked up on prior to the incident occurring. And this led us to create predictive threat signaling. And also it led us to create more classes to back up that threat criteria, such as those pallets. So we learned that typically an excavator doesn't just appear overnight and then strike the line. That in the picture that you previously saw, those pallets can be a leading indicator that there's going to be some kind of construction on or near the right-of-way. So how predictive threat signaling works is it takes essentially all of those images from our camera that I showed you first. Then it takes the AI modeling to start creating some patterns or recognizing patterns. And then from there, we're able to actually forecast there might be an issue coming up with these pallets or with construction fencing or just having vehicles suddenly showing up on the right-of-way. And from there, we can go from reacting to predicting and eliminating a threat or a line strike before it happens. So again, you can see this in this case for the line strike. You can see what it looks like in the weeks leading up to it, and then on the day that it happened with just the imagery. And I've gone ahead and circled the exact excavator actively digging on the right-of-way when the line was struck. And this is with the AI on top of it. And this is really the best possible example of a line strike in progress. After the plane flew over, about 10 minutes later, they got the call that the line was indeed struck. And on top of that, there was no rupture and no one was hurt. So it really was best case scenario as far as line strikes go. So again, we learned that we didn't really think that strikes just happen to occur or an excavator just shows up to hit or dig on the line. So we went back through all of our data to find what were the leading indicators and how could we have prevented this. So we go 1 week prior and we see all the ground disturbances. And the red line is the center line, or where that pipeline is. So there's definitely signs that there's activity in the area. And then 2 weeks prior, even, you can see more ground disturbance. And then you can also see there is a piece of heavy machinery there as well. So taking the imagery and also the AI detections, we want to make it easy for the customer to use, because if it's too complicated or too piecemeal, it's not going to get used. And so we're able to create dashboards and make it an interactive dashboard for them to use. You see the base map actually shows those green dots are all the available imagery that they can view within the area. And then in the middle, you see the AI detections and also just the imagery as well, and it gives you the date. And then on the left-hand side, you can see where those threat predictors are actually listed out for them to easily view. And they can filter based on pipeline, based on area, or by the highest threat. And you can see we have them all labeled as high. And you can also create reports that you can email or print out to send off to whoever needs to see it. So the next part of our pipeline intelligence suite is our compliance app. And compliance can be very hard to track sometimes, and you might even be doing it manually or on paper. So we've gone ahead and simplified it effectively. It really came from the need to have it simplified and easy to view. And it's for internal tracking as well as being able to easily prove compliance. And I'll do a quick little video demonstration of using it. You can see all the pipeline segments listed on the side. And if you select one, it shows you every single patrol that was done. And then if you click on it, it'll zoom and give you a little bit more information. And you can actually email it if you want, just a quick little report. And I'll skip ahead here. The next step is actually turning on our flight lines, and that looks like a rainbow spaghetti plate. So what you do is you can then select exactly what date range you want to view those flight lines. And so you can eliminate a lot of the noise. And the next part is actually applying the filters on the pipelines themselves. You might not need to know what the pipelines that just got flown look like or which ones they are, but you might need to know all the pipelines that only have 5 days until you hit the compliance deadline. So you're able to view that easily and filter for those. And it doesn't have to be a set time. It can be 5 days, 3 days, 14 days. So all customizable. And of course, the legend that goes with it. And the next part is adding some weather data to that. If you have, and you'll see, a hurricane that might be sitting off the Atlantic Ocean, and you have 5 days until your compliance deadline, you might not be able to get a plane in the air. So that's when you can pivot and say you either need to get the plane up quicker or sooner, or you'll have to get a team out there to do a different kind of inspection. So as you can see, big old hurricane. Not current, by the way. Or you can turn off warnings and just view what the current radar conditions look like. And the next part of the suite is our pilot report app. And just as we were trying to simplify compliance, this is essentially taking reporting and simplifying that as well. We've found there's a big need to go from Excel or paper reports, which you can get hundreds to thousands that you have files or papers that you have to keep track of. And so we've created a way to keep everything located in a centralized database that you can easily filter for time or flight or pipeline segment. And the common theme is it's interactive and easy to use. And so this is what our pilots are actually using. You have the manual as well as kind of the meat and potatoes of everything, and easily filled out and actually automated as well. If you're flying a specific system, there's no need to have every single line ID available. So you select your system and it filters exactly what applies to that. And the second part is the observation entries. And you can add as many of those observation entries as you might need for each segment or system. And another part of this observation is you can attach pictures or images to the observation report. And then, of course, you have your acknowledgements and then sign and submit. But that's for the pilots. So what the customer will then see is a dashboard view of that. And forgive all the gray boxes, had to sterilize it a little bit. But on the left side, you'll see all the submitted reports. And as you select on each individual report, it then populates and gives you the overview of the report, as well as every patrol entry and observation entry associated with that. And when you select an observation entry, you get that picture that is associated with it. So that's a lot of different moving pieces. And so what we found is there needs to be a centralized location where it can all be accessed. And that's actually how Civic Mapper, we worked with them to develop our data resource portal. And as you can see, you have your compliance, your patrol, and oriented imagery, which has the AI, all in one place. And you also can access different layers as well, including LiDAR, any geohazards that might already be tagged, agriculture, vegetation, leaks, it's all customizable. Hopefully doing okay on time. But that concludes my presentation. If you can take a picture of that if you want, but feel free to find me afterwards if you have anything else.